version of the deck, he's playing 3 copies of High Priest, and it's ingrained in everybody's head to just kill the High Priest when you drop it on turn 2, just kill it. So he said, if you want it to die, you play it on turn 2, just put it out there, and then you follow up with, Smiters, Desecration Demons, and just beat them down with that. Or if you actually want to use the High Priest, play it late. And so he's kind of got more of a muscle, I guess more muscle in the deck to kind of go aggro rather than relying on triggering a High Priest.
Now, Michael Rooks, a player from Alexandria, Virginia, has an SCG runner-up in Washington, D.C. Also, a lot of PTQ top 8s, he says here. And he always says that he plays Bruise or Semi-Bruise. And he's doing that this weekend because even though it does say Black-Green on the screen, Black-Green Rock, a deck that Jeff Hoogland took to an invitational top 8, kind of putting that deck on the map with Desecration Demon and some other things, his version is a lot different. And that's one of the reasons why Demonic Taskmaster, you see Brad reading it, we're going to bring it up. It's from Avacyn's Restored. It's a 4/3 flyer, and you can only control that, or you have to sacrifice something else. Unless you're controlling other demon creature. We're going to bring it up because I haven't actually seen it for a while.
Yeah.
And I just got the deck list in front of me. I'm like, Demonic Taskmaster, racking my brain to remember exactly what it does.
It's that whole theme with controlling just one creature. So as you can see, Brad played a turn 2 High Priest, expecting it to possibly die, and following it up with a Smiter. Kind of the exact sequence I was saying, except the High Priest actually lived.
Yeah.
So that to me indicates Brad has some muscle in his hand. So there you see the Taskmaster, a 4/3 for 3 mana, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature other than Demonic Taskmaster. So it's a 4/3 for 3 flying, and if you just control that, then you're good. That's it. So he's going to swing in with the Taskmaster here on his 4th turn.
You take a look at Rook's deck list here. Again, a lot different than what we're normally been seeing for Black-Green recently, as you saw him play a Grim Backwoods for the turn. He's got Mutilates, which is kind of what makes this deck tick. Basically trying to abuse Mutilate as best he can. Doesn't have a ton of swamps in play right now, but Mutilate is kind of the base of the deck, the removal, kind of trying to abuse that card. He's got the 4 Demonic Taskmaster, 3 Disciple Bulls, 4 Thragtusk. He also has 3 Homicidal Seclusion, a card that we'll probably bring up at some point for you guys, all about controlling one creature, and then Haunted Plate Mail as well. So there are a lot of new cards, or cards we just haven't been seen for a little while in this deck.
So Brad looks like he's going to attack with the Smiter, then backs off after surveying the board in his hand, kind of still considering things here. Looks like maybe he's going to go all in.
This is like a matchup here where, Brad has to kind of figure out what Rooks is up to. Because, Demonic Taskmaster, obviously not a card that you're going to see a lot of in Standard, or haven't seen a lot of recently, or if at all, in Standard. And, you have to figure out what he's kind of up to, because, there's certainly a Black-Green shell, and Brad has been testing the Black-Green deck that Hoogland did make top 8 of the Invitational with, and has been seeing a lot of success on Magic Online. So, he's probably got an idea of what he thinks is in Rooks' deck, but not everything. So he's being very cautious with his attacks and how he wants to go about, starting this game off as we move to the mid-game.
Seemed pretty impressed with that Black-Green deck in his article, as he mentioned. So he does swing in with Loxodon Smiter and the High Priest, follows it up with a 2nd High Priest and an Avacyn's Pilgrim. So Michael Rooks now at 15, Brad Nelson at 16, and Michael Rooks takes out the Loxodon Smiter with an Abrupt Decay at end of turn.
Yeah, Abrupt Decaying there so that High Priest can't get active. He doesn't want to Abrupt Decay too early, so he does take some damage on the chin. The 2 creatures come down post-combat, and now it's a pretty good time to Abrupt Decay, taking care of the biggest creature, and now the Taskmaster can actually stand tall on this board.
Yeah. So Taskmaster in for another 4, going to knock Brad to 12 here, and Michael Rooks passes the turn without a land drop.
You see Rooks' hand, he has another Taskmaster in his hand. He also has a Thragtusk as well. He's just missing the 5th land at this moment. Of course, Thragtusk being a very, very good Magic card, as we know. Works out pretty well with the Taskmaster. You can sacrifice the front half, get the Beast token, do some blocking maybe, and then you'll actually have the Taskmaster left over. So I actually kind of like that card in his deck, because you can tell he's sculpted his deck around making it so that the drawback is just completely irrelevant.
So a Cartel Aristocrat for Brad Nelson pre-combat here.
Might force Rooks' hand to have a response to the Aristocrat before it comes in, so that Nelson can't pump out a 5/5 Demon token. 5/5 going to be better than everything Rooks actually will have at this point.
All right, Brad swinging with just the lone Avacyn's Pilgrim for an extra 1 point of damage. Going to knock Michael to 13, Brad Nelson at 12. Brad with 4 creatures on board, but Michael Rooks with the big, the lone fatty. I guess lone being the the operative word there.
It's all by itself as the Taskmaster. But you know, the interesting thing here is that it keeps getting aggressive, keeps sending in for 4. He might have to hold off now because Aristocrat can basically make a 5/5 at will, sacrificing the Pilgrim. Morbid will be in effect, then he can activate his, well, either one of his High Priests, since they're both active now, to put out a 5/5 Demon. So we'll see what Rooks can do about this situation, because Taskmaster, I don't think, can get frisky anymore.
Yeah, I agree. So Brad plays a Temple Garden tap, passes the turn to Michael Rooks. Michael shaking his head, trying to figure out how he wants to get out of this situation. Pretty much exactly what you were saying.
And he did draw his 5th land. It looked like he drew a Woodland Cemetery for the turn, so you know he can play that and play a Thragtusk and move up to 19 as you see the Cemetery come into play. But is that really going to do anything for him in this game by playing Thragtusk going up to 19, knowing that a 5/5 Demon is going to be coming shortly?
Now, do you put yourself in a situation where you want to get rid of that Taskmaster because you'd rather have the front half of the Thragtusk? You know, try to just swing with the Taskmaster, say, all right, I'll run it into a 5/5. Is that?
I mean, it's definitely an option.
Right.
I don't know if it's a good one, but it's an option.
And basically, you're just choosing the front half of Thragtusk over the Taskmaster.
Yeah. Homicidal Seclusion is the card that Rooks did play this turn. Opted not to go with the Thragtusk, does go with the Seclusion, as you see that on the screen. +3/+1 and has lifelink, but Tragic Slip does not care about that. So the Morbid on that, as Brad does make a 5/5 Demon, is going to allow him to untap and swing with basically whatever he wants to.
Yeah, Brad has set himself up nicely here, clearing Michael's lone creature, and now is going to be able to swing in for quite a bit of damage.
So he's got a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So he can potentially swing in for 9 points of damage here. You know, if he has a Township, he can make it 13 if he'd like to. You know, again, deciding exactly how he wants to attack. Do I want to leave up a High Priest to be able to threaten another 5/5 Demon? All that good stuff.
And just the Demon is going to swing in here for Brad. Knock Michael to 9 life. And then Brad follows that up with a Voice of Resurgence.
Yep.
And
a 3rd High Priest.
Yeah, another High Priest.
So there's your voice token. Morbid is triggered now. So it looks like, yeah, we're going to pump out 2 demons. I see exactly what he's going to do here. So he's going to make a demon. It's going to give enough creatures to actually make another demon. So now he's going to pump out basically 2 5/5s. And Voice of Resurgence is just at a million right now.
A giant elemental.
Yeah.
And Michael Rooks draws his card for the turn and scoops him up.
I think it's an easy time to get to even Mutilate right now with all those Woodland Cemeteries out there. And that Grim Backwoods. I think Mutilate was for -1/-1.
Yeah,
right
I don't think he had much of a Mutilate going on there. It was kind of like I don't even know if it was Infest range.
Yeah, an expensive Infest at that. You take a look at Rooks's swamps. He has 12 swamps and 4 overruns. So he actually has 16, which is kind of the number, the sweet spot that a lot of people have been going for to make Mutilate pretty good. But, you know, there are draws that open themselves up to actually not having the necessary swamps through to cast a good Mutilate, because he does have 4 Woodland Cemeteries, that Singleton Grim Backwoods, and 4 Mutavaults. That's a lot of those.
Yeah, the Mutilate, not so effective. But despite this being the, and Brad called it this in his article actually this week, it wasn't Michael Rooks' version of Black-Green, but Black-Green is the mono-black control deck of the format right now. Although Michael's deck is not really, it's not following the typical pattern of a ton of removal and then like some sort of win condition. His deck actually, as you saw there, is mostly based on having one guy in play and trying to go all the way with that. Another interesting card in the list, Haunted Plate Mail from M14. Very interesting choice there.
I think a card that we'll see a lot more of after rotation, or at least I'm hoping, just because that card is probably my favorite card from M14, just because of like flavor and it's cool and it's kind of like a build around me card, or at least like it's a unique win condition.
Right.
That I actually like quite a bit.
It is one of the more flavorful cards too. I believe designed by Gavin Verhey.
Oh.
I thought I saw Gavin tweet that he had come up with. That was one of his first designs. So very cool.
So we'll take a look at the sideboards here. We will start with Michael Rooks, who does have 2 Barter and Blood, 2 Putrefy, a Sever the Bloodline, 2 Encroaching Waste, another card from M14, 2 Duress, 2 Curse of Death's Hole, 2 Deathrite Shaman, and 2 Vraska the Unseen in his sideboard. I mean, a lot of options, obviously. You know, I wouldn't say he's like in a control mirror, but he's trying to beat a mid-range deck. You know, a card like Barter and Blood is one that you would kind of see against a creature-heavy deck. Most times against Brad's deck, not really at its best.
Right. I mean, Brad's deck kind of wants that effect in a way. At least he's certainly not scoffing at it. So that doesn't help him. He's got a couple of Putrefys and 1 Sever. that can help deal with like multiple demon tokens, for example, or anything that he's got.
Curse of
that's
Death Soul,
troubling.
I think, being like the big one in his
Oh, yeah,
sideboard.
yeah.
We saw Reed do cast that against Brad in Grand Prix Miami a couple months ago. It being an absolute backbreaker against him. Reed only had one of those in the sideboard, kind of a miser's one of that he had access to. Rooks has two of them. I think he can play a really important role, assuming that he can actually get himself in a position where when he does cast that, it is kind of the backbreaker that it's meant to be.
Right. I mean, and it is. If there's any deck that Curse of Death Soul is just incredible against, it's a Junk Aristocrats
Yeah.
deck. Brad does have a little bit more resilience to it, I think, in this particular build.
Yep.
Still not, great, but having something like Loxodon Smiter doesn't care too much. I mean, it cares about a quarter of its power toughness.
It is actually a little bit interesting because his deck is a little bit more resilient, as you said, to that card than previous iterations have been. Again, Desecration Demon as a 3-of, Loxodon Smiter as a 3-of, but the kind of thing that stands out to me is that Lingering Souls for Brad this weekend is only a 2-of, where in a lot of cases it's been a 4-of in Junk Aristocrats. Kind of one of the cards that makes the deck tick. And I think we can all agree that Souls really isn't at its best right now because of Kibler's red-green aggro deck. There's a lot of bonfires looming, a lot of thermal hellkites out there. So Lingering Souls isn't really great. So as a result, Brad scales back on those. Makes Curse of Death Soul actually a lot worse against him.
Right.
Cards in Brad's sideboard really quickly as you see both players getting ready for game 2. He's got an Ultimate Price, he's got an Underworld Connections, 3 Garrick Relentless, 3 Unflinching Courage, 2 Appetite for Brains, 2 Putrefy, that 3rd Lingering Souls in his sideboard, and Obes that, and a Scavenging Ooze. So a lot of options about how he wants to go about beating a control deck like this one. I think Obes that is the easy one that he's going to bring in.
Yeah. And we're underway. So Brad has a turn 1 Avacyn's Pilgrim. Michael Rooks with just a couple of land drops. And Brad plays his second land. So what has he got for us with 3 mana?
A lot of different cards in his hand right now. He's got a Tragic Slip. He's got a Doom Traveler in his hand, it looks like. Skirstack High Priest looks like it's going to join the party. And here comes the Traveler. He also has an Underworld Connections and a Garrick Relentless in his hand too, Joey. So he's got a lot of different cards and a lot of different angles to go for right now as Abrupticate takes care of the High Priest.
Another card advantage engine in the Underworld Connections.
There's 3 minutes of Taskmaster. Okay.
Yeah, so Michael Rooks has an Abrupt Decay at end of turn to deal with the High Priest and follows it up with a Taskmaster on his turn, leaving Brad with a Doom Traveler and an Avacyn's Pilgrim and 2 lands.
Again, if you just take a look at Rooks' mana base for this game, kind of the same thing that we saw last game. 1 Swamp, even though he has 3 lands. He's got the Woodland Cemetery and a Mutavault in play right now. So, as much as I think his deck is geared towards casting Mutilate, or at least having it be favorable, again, he can't really control what lands he draws.
Right.
Percentages will say that he'll draw more swamps than not, but these draws can happen quite a bit at a time, and as a result, his Mutilates are never going to be, I don't want to say never, but they're just not anywhere near as good as I think he wants them to be in this matchup.
Right, he's got 16 swamps in his main deck, but Mutilate not looking so good so far. So Lingering Souls for Brad on his turn, and he passes back to Michael Rooks.
I think Mutilate's the card he drew this turn too.
Yeah. So Taskmaster swings in, Lingering Souls token gets in the way. Also a Spirit token gets in the way, and passes back to Brad. Brad untapped. Life totals right now, Michael Rooks at 20, Brad Nelson at 18, just from his own Shockland, I believe.
Yeah, no land there from Rooks either, so now he's kind of stuck. He's got another Taskmaster in his hand. I think he drew a Mutilate for the turn last turn, but he can't really do anything at this moment. He's taking some hits here, nothing like substantial, as you're going to see Nelson flashback and Lingering Souls. But, it's kind of like, I think that Taskmaster just might want to stay back on defense now until he can actually find some lands as he draws another non-land card for the turn.
So Brad swings in with his 2 1-power guys, flashes back the Lingering Souls, as you mentioned. Brad missing his land drop on his 3rd and 4th turn as well. So there you see a Sign in Blood from Michael Rooks.
Did you find a land, Michael?
We're going to find out. It looks like he may have, or at least he's got a card. Yeah, there's a second Mutavault. So Mutavault Go is the play from Michael Rooks. Doesn't really feel like swinging with the Taskmaster just to get chump blocked by a Spirit, or even triple blocked
Yeah.
by 3 spirits.
I mean, can get triple block. Brad can also just say, all right, I'll take 4,
Right.
and start attacking back for more damage. He's going to play a Loxodon Smiter off the Pilgrim and 2 Lambs and pass the turn back.
Again, a missed land drop for Brad Nelson, but he's still got plenty of action.
I mean, building a board.
Yeah. So here we have the
Okay.
Mutilate that you believed he drew, and it is for, I believe, 1.
Yep.
But that will deal with the Doom Traveler, the 3 spirits, and leave 1 spirit from the Doom Traveler, and a Loxodon Smiter on Brad's side. So
You saw that Rooks played the Mutilate before actually playing his land. He did draw an Overgrown Tomb for the turn. Doesn't want to give everything -2/-2. -1/-1. Certainly sufficient for what the Mutilate was going to
Right.
accomplish. Doesn't change anything by having
Exactly.
additional Swamp.
and Loxodon Smiter going to come in for Brad Nelson, and the Taskmaster gets in the way, but Brad has a Tragic Slip to
Make
make
it-
sure his Smiter survives.
Make it into a 3/2, so it's going to win that combat. But I think if you're Rooks, you're absolutely thrilled that that's how the turn goes. He's going to play a Haunted Plate Mail and pass the turn back. Because, you know, Nelson's having a little bit of difficulty with mana. You're more than happy to trade your Taskmaster at this juncture for a Tragic Slip, because you know you have multiple plays now. With a Haunted Plate Mail, he's got another Taskmaster in his hand. He can activate the Plate Mail here and trade with the Smiter if he wants to.
There
So
you
he's
see.
got most of the options.
There you see Haunted Plate Mail, 4 mana, essentially a 4 mana 4/4
Yeah.
with some other opportunities. So you saw an Abrupt Decay to deal with the Smiter from Michael Rooks, and a flashback Lingering Souls there, or front half of Lingering Souls there from Brad Nelson.
Looks like Rooks drew, or at least had another Mutilate. You also see Sever the Bloodline in his hand as well. So
and another Taskmaster in hand.
those Spirit Tokens are of no threat to him right now. So Nelson's going to take a look at the Haunted Plate Mail. Again, Plate Mail can become a 4/4 creature at any time. If you're old school, it kind of reminds me of maybe like a Chimeric Idol type
Yeah,
card. Here comes, looks like this,
Mutilate.
this is going to be Mutilate again to clear out those Spirit Tokens. I like casting Mutilate here instead of actually, instead of using the Sever. I think Sever's value is going to be much greater over the course of this game than the Mutilate will be. Just pick off a better creature.
Yeah. So Brad Nelson, clear board, 4 lands, facing down a Haunted Plate Mail double Mutavault from Michael Rooks. Brad at 12, Michael at 15, and a Desecration Demon from Brad.
4 mana 6/6 in the house. Rooks' deck does have a lot of removal. Doesn't have to be terrified of that card. Does have that Sever, as we mentioned. This
Right.
is one of the reasons to actually hold the Sever if he knows Brad's list, which I don't think many people do. But if he knows Brad's list, or, he can save the Sever, use the Mutilate to take care of the Spirit Token. Sever takes care of the Demon. He can keep crashing in with the Mutavault and the Haunted Plate Mail. So there is going to be a Sever the Bloodline.
Yeah. Sever the Bloodline takes out the Desecration Demon. And Michael Rook's going to get in with the Plate Mail.
Now there's a Taskmaster post-combat.
Brad now at 8 life.
So what we could end up seeing next turn, Joey, is Haunted Plate Mail. Actually, we don't get to see the equip cost used very often
Right.
of 4, but move the Plate Mail onto the Demon and get in for 4 to finish the game. And Nelson does have access to Lingering Souls in the graveyard to flashback to get some chumpers in the way, but right now, his back's kind of against the wall right now. You can certainly say that Rooks is ahead in this game and only getting further ahead, and it's Brad's job to actually try to get back into it.
You see Garrett Relentless there in Brad's hand, but Brad's going to go ahead and scoop him up.
Yep.
Sees that he is unlikely to win that game, and now we are tied up. Michael Rooks and Brad Nelson, 1 game apiece here in round 1 of the StarCityGames.com Open Series live from Baltimore.
You see the issue with that game, Brad obviously being bottlenecked on mana. Yes, he
Yeah.
did have Garrick Relentless to be able to take care of the Taskmaster, but what Rooks does is he just untaps, activates his Plate Mail to make it a 4/4, activates both Mutavaults, gets in for the last 8 points of damage. So Brad taking a look at his hand, surveying his position, realizing that that's likely going to be the outcome of the game, and just picks it up and moves on to game number 3. Doesn't look like he's going to re-sideboard. You see him shuffling up pretty quickly. Rooks unveiled more cards that game than he did in the first one. I'm sure that Brad was aware that Mutilate was coming. But, now he's got a better idea of, there's Haunted Plate Mail out there. I know he has Homicidal Seclusion from game 1. He's probably got a better idea now of what Rooks' deck is doing.
Mutilate. Now I'm doing it.
Yep.
Mutilate looked really good that game.
Yeah.
even for 1 or 2, just
Yep.
dealing with the Lingering Souls, because that was what Brad was able to do, being bottlenecked. He was able to flood the board with 1/1s, and a card like Mutilate is great in that situation. So Michael just had the exact cards to deal with what Brad was presenting on board.
The big question you have to ask yourself is, is that an anomaly? Is that something that's
Right.
going to happen? Because again, Nelson's Junk Aristocrats deck this weekend is much bigger. Again, 3 Desecration Demon, 3 Loxodon Smiter, less Lingering Souls. Verils can get bigger and out of range. Same thing can be said of the 1 Scavenging Ooze in his main deck. Of course, in that game that we just watched, Mutilate being an absolute all-star, I think that in more games, if they were play a lot more games, I don't know how good Mutilate would actually be against Nelson's deck. Again, Rooks does have a lot of swamps, 16 of them, and 12 swamps and 4 overgrown teams. So yes, his Mutilates can actually keep pace with Loxodon Smiter and can eventually get to Desecration Demon range. But again, no way for him to control that. As we've seen over the first 2 games. So how good is Mutilate going to be, especially when he's going to be on the draw this game too.
Right.
So he's going to actually he's going to probably need Mutilate to actually chase down some things. Additionally, we know that removal isn't the greatest thing against Junk Aristocrats. Supreme Verdict type effects because of Voice of Resurgence, because of Doom Traveler, stuff that's just kind of floating around, and how Brad balances his resources. They're not the best cards in the world, but I do agree with you that Mutilate was, of course, phenomenal that last game that we watched.
I mean, we were kind of criticizing it a little bit before before that game about just kind of how poor it seemed to look in game 1.
Yep.
At being only 1 or 2.
Yep.
Actually, it was 1, I think, -1, but it was perfect that game. Now Brad played 2 copies of Lingering Souls in that. Do you think he brought in the 3rd?
I wouldn't be surprised. Again, it's this interesting situation where does Brad know what his opponent is playing? Now he knows that they're Mutilates. Will he maybe sideboard them out? Did he board the 3rd one in? He doesn't know that Rooks has Curse of Deathhold. I think if he knew that, he'd probably board all the Mutilates out.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, the Lingering Souls out. So there's a chance that he brought the 3rd one in because it is a very good card just to get attrition-y and, chump the Taskmaster and do that sort of thing. We saw him cast 2 of them, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's 2 and there's probably a 3rd one too.
I'm sure he wasn't shocked to see Mutilate.
Yeah, no, not at all.
As the lone Wrath effect, or the best Wrath effect, I think, in Black.
Even with his black-green history of playing the deck, I don't think there's any surprise there. I think that one thing that might be in Brad's mind right now is, does he have Lifebane Zombies somewhere in his 75?
Right.
Because we haven't seen that yet. Of course, we know that he doesn't, but, does that change the way that Brad's going to sideboard?
So we're underway. Both players lead with an Overgrown Tomb, and Brad's first play of the game is a Voice of Resurgence on turn 2. Here on turn 3, he swings in with the Voice, knocks Michael to 18, and has a Skursdag High Priest as the follow-up, along with a Appetite for Brains.
All right, he's getting his paper ready. You see, Rooks is going to read it. Brad's got his pen at the ready to say, all right, let's take a look. What do you have here, buddy?
Taking notes. So we've got a Sever the Bloodline, a Curse of Death's Hold, a Putrefy, and what is that? Is that a Thragtusk?
Yeah, Thragtusk.
A couple of lands.
Yeah, a couple of lands in Swamp and Woodland Cemetery, and then a Homicidal Seclusion. So he does have 4 lands, and the one that obviously sticks out probably to Brad is, hey, there's a Curse of Death's Hold. That card's pain in the butt for me, or was in Miami.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I care about it now in this game or in this particular matchup anymore because my deck is different. So I'm really interested to see what he's going to take here. Because Seclusion can be really good, Thragtusk can be annoying, Sever can be annoying, and then Curse, depending on how Brad's draw is, how he sideboarded, how that lines up, can be annoying as well.
Yeah, a lot of good targets here for Brad, but a lot of it depends on his game plan for this game. He's going to take Sever. So Sever is exiled.
Yeah, and that's a big one there, of course, as you mentioned, exiled. That's what Appetite for Brains does.
Right.
Makes it go away forever, so no flashback on the Sever. Would be far away from flashing back anyway, but that's not even going to be an option anymore for Rooks. He's going to play a land, and he's going to play Putrefy to take care of the High Priest right away. We've seen him kill High Priest immediately,
right,
whenever he's had the option to, so he realizes how good it is against him.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Brad said. You play the High Priest early expecting it to die.
Yeah.
If you really want to get use out of the High Priest, you are more likely to play it later. So I think Brad has some muscle, or at least a different plan than High Priest this game. But he's going to go ahead and play Underworld Connections.
So Brad looks like I don't want to say he's gearing up for the long game, but he's getting ready for an attrition battle.
Yeah.
He knows that Rooks' deck has a lot of removal in it, Mutilates, Putrefy, Abrupt Decays, all that good stuff. He's got an idea of what's in Rooks' hand. He knows that Curse of Death's Hold is probably, it's coming. because if he wanted to take it, he would have. He chose not to. Now, the one thing that's going to be interesting to me to watch how this game's going to play out over the course of these next couple of turns is Brad has all the information of what Rooks has. There are a couple of cards that he doesn't know about now because of draw steps, but, he chose Sever the Bloodline. That was his choice to take that card instead of Thraxus, instead of Curse. So he's making a loud statement, Joey, that I'm not scared of those cards.
Right. So Brad draws a couple of cards, one at the end of Michael's turn, one on his turn using the Underworld Connections, and follows it up with a Desecration Demon after swinging in with the Voice of Resurgence. Michael Rooks at 14 life, Brad at 18, or has he played an untapped shot this game? So just the 18 from the Underworld Connection. So there's Thragtusk for Michael Rooks to get back a chunk of that life total, up to 19.
And, this might be part of the reason that, Nelson did decide to take Sever instead of, Curse or Thragtusk, because when you do have a Desecration Demon, you don't care about Thragtusk, and you don't really care about Curse of Deathsoul, because that thing is so huge, and it's going to change the way that Rooks actually has to play the game. Now, if Rooks does draw another Putrefy, another removal spell, then things work out well for him, but I think Brad knew that, one, I don't really care about, Curse or Thragtusk, and two, he's definitely going to Putrefy my High Priest. That's what's going to happen in the Putrefy. Yeah. So, as a result, he took the Sever the Line, which would be the answer for Desecration Demon, and now he can start going to work with a 6/6 flyer.
So Brad here in his pre-combat main phase, presumably.
You see, he's kind of asking himself, do I want to activate the Underworld Connections? How do I want to kind of lay out this turn? He's got a High Priest in his hand as well. He's got a Garrett Relentless there. So you see he's going to go to his attack step, taps the demon and say, this trigger, do you want to activate it for Thragtusk? Rooks says no. Going to come across for 6 and move into his second main.
So Michael down to 13. And now Brad, looks like he's going to play the High Priest here. He does. And it looks like he's going to make his land drop there, Godless Shrine, pass. So
I kind of like this too because, what this is, again, the Underworld Connections, it's basically representing, hey, I'm more than okay going long and playing an attrition battle with you. He only has one in his sideboard. He did draw it, but as a result, he actually can kind of set up and craft this game the way that he wants to. Appetite giving me information, knowing when he needs to play around, and now he's just saying, you know what, I'm happy to go long because I think my card advantage can actually grind you out and beat you. I think going to a long game, I'm better suited to win because of cards like Desecration Demon and some of the other long game resources he has access to.
So Michael Rooks plays a land with a lone Thragtusk on board as his only non-land permanent. Facing down Brad Nelson's Desecration Demon, Skursdag High Priest, which is still summoning sick, and Voice of Resurgent.
So you see 5 mana being tapped here for Rooks. He did play a Grim Backwoods for the turn for his land drop. I'm wondering what he has this turn. We know he has Homicidal Seclusion in his hand, so it would make his Thragtusk into a 8/4 lifelinker.
Right.
So a very sizable attacker.
And looks like that might be
coming sideways. Yep. And so this is going to be an ultimate price.
Yeah, the one ultimate price, I believe, a one of in the sideboard. Brad said mostly there to kill Skursdag High Priests.
So now the beast is going to die. He should have a beast token coming in so long as he does remember the trigger from Thragtusk. And that beast token, because again, he'll only control one creature because of Homicidal Seclusion, we're looking at a 6/4 that does have lifelink.
So Brad draws a card off of the Underworld Connections at the end of turn and now untaps. He's going to draw another card off of the Connections here. So a lot of Brad's up a lot of cards just off of that Underworld Connections.
I mean, it's a scary feeling. Like when you're facing against a deck that typically should be able to draw cards from Junk Aristocrats, him being able to draw more cards, get deeper into his deck, find those synergies that make this deck so powerful. Again, you see the High Priest in play. It has not died, so that means that, if a Cartel Aristocrat shows up or something else, now we can start pumping out 5/5 demons, and if we remember game 1, Rooks couldn't beat that.
Yeah. So Brad gets in with the Desecration Demon. Michael decides he does not want to sacrifice anything. So Michael goes to 7. Brad follows up with a Garrick.
Simple Pilgrim.
And an Abyss's Pilgrim. Makes a wolf there with the Garrick. So Brad with a ton of dudes on board and opportunity to make some 5/5s. Pretty potentially. I
mean, the problem here for Rooks, right, is that he definitely wants to attack with the Todd Anderson Beast token. That's a 6/4.
Right.
But I think Brad will probably, chump block with something, be it Voice of Resurgence, Wolf token, have his
Right.
Pilgrim, his choice. One of the things he's not going to chump block with is the High Priest.
Right.
And then as a result, Morbid's active, he's got guys to be able to make it, but I think that Rooks is priced into attacking here because he's at 7 and he needs to keep his life total high.
Yeah, he actually needs the life total more than he needs the necessarily needs the 6/4. But yeah, Brad doesn't have anything that's going to. There you see the Abyss's Pilgrim get in front of the beast there. So.
Okay.
Oh, and a Putrefy in response for the High Priest is going to stop that line of play from happening.
So that's a really good attack there by Rooks. He comes in with the 6/4. Nelson's going to predictably block. He chooses to block with Abyss's Pilgrim before damage and anything happens. Putrefy takes care of the High Priest, so now there's going to be no Morbid, no 5/5 Demon coming out, and he's actually going to get his life, is Rooks, and then pass the turn back. So actually a pretty good turn, all things considered.
Yeah, very good turn. So right now, life totals 13 for Michael Rooks, 15 for Brad Nelson. Brad has a Desecration Demon, a Wolf, and a Voice of Resurgence alongside a Garruk Relentless on board. And Desecration Demon trigger at the beginning of combat. Michael says, go ahead, you've got your 6/6. Bring it. And Brad looks like he's going to bring it with everybody. Wolf, Voice of Resurgence, Desecration Demon, all getting in. Michael with a 6/4 lifelinker due to that homicidal seclusion is just fine with that. Goes down to 3.
Nelson gonna make a Wolf, make a Doom Traveler, pass the turn back, has some mana available. It looks like he's cardless.
Yeah, Brad does appear to have no cards in his hand, which is a surprise considering the Underworld connections.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of cards on board, though.
So. I'm genuinely surprised that he's cardless. I mean, it looks like he's cardless right now.
Yeah.
If he's not, he only has 1 or 2 cards in his hand. Rooks sitting here again with that 6/4 life-linking Beast token. And again, I think he's in the situation where he's priced into attacking. Does he want to attack Nelson or does he want to attack Garruk? That's his call. But he does have to attack her. He is going to attack Garruk. Immediately, Nelson's going to block and make a Spirit token off a Doom Traveler.
Yes, so Garruk survives the turn. Doom Traveler does not, but a Spirit.
Sign in Blood, a little risky.
Yeah, he is up to 9 life off of that lifelink. Now drops to 7. And he's got a follow-up here. A Thragtusk is going to go up to 12.
Okay.
Gaining a lot of life. Looking reasonable for Michael, staying in this game despite Brad's massive card advantage off of that Underworld connections.
And Nelson does have a couple cards in his hand. You see him in his hand right now.
On the side, yeah.
One thing to keep in mind now, too, Joey, is that because he does play a Thragtusk, does Rooks, yes, he does go up to 12, but now Seclusion's turned off.
It is,
because he doesn't have a single creature anymore. Now, of course, the kind of unique thing here for Rooks' deck is that he can actually, in a way, control how many creatures he has in play. He could, Abrupt Decay his Todd Anderson token.
Right.
With some sort of sneaky attack, which, just send in with Thragtusk. Nothing going on here. And then kill his own guy if he needs to.
Right.
So that's something that Nelson needs to be cognizant of, assuming that we get to see Rooks untap and go to another turn.
Right. Brad's still at a healthy 15 with a lot of guys on board. Desecration Demon, a pair of Wolves, Voice of Resurgence, and a Spirit token alongside that Garruk Relentless, just pumping out Wolves.
So we're in Brad's first main phase. He has not activated Underworld Connections yet. He's sitting at 15 life. He's going to Garruk and take care of Thragtusk. So he's just going to fight that and says, all right, get that off the table. And I don't think that Rooks can have a response. Yeah, so that's going to die. Beast token's going to come in. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think he has a backup character, right? Maybe? Okay. So what we see happening here is, so Garruk takes care of the front half. The Beast token comes in. And so now Nelson says, can I attack? Desecration Demon gets tapped. Rooks sacks his Beast, says no. Tragic Slip takes care of the other Beast token. And then Nelson gets in with all those guys and plays a Garruk. Wow.
Yeah, that's quite the turn for Brad. Clears the entire other side of the board. Still follows up with a Planeswalker. And is able to knock Michael down to 5 off of a pair of Wolves and the Voice of Resurgence. Notably, that Demon is still around and now is he 7/7.
Yep. And so what you saw that Brad do there with his Garruk Relentless is he fights his own Spirit token to flip his Garruk Relentless into Garruk the Veiled Cursed. So now he can represent a tutor for whatever he wants to next turn. Wouldn't be surprised to see him go get Obzadat next turn, assuming that Garruk is still around. But now Rooks is in a difficult situation because that combat, as you said, went great for Brad.
Yeah.
Taking care of all of Rooks' stuff, that tragic slip, the desecration, even sacrifice, everything. And it's kind of strange too because with Rooks, him sacrificing that tap beast token, it would have left him with just one creature for Homicidal Seclusion, so he would have been in that situation where he would have had a 6/4 life-linking blocker, but also had a tragic slip to take care of that.
We do see Michael with a Taskmaster in hand, so he can put a 4/3 on board that will be a 7/4 lifelinker.
Yep.
And that might get him out of this situation. As you mentioned, the Garrick over there representing a tutor. I don't know if Michael has an Abrupt Decay. That's his probably his best removal spell for a flipped Garrick.
Yeah, you see his hand right now. He's got a Deathrite Shaman. He has a Demonic Taskmaster. He has another copy of Homicidal Seclusion, and he's got a mystery card hiding in there as well.
I think it's
It's the curse. Yeah, it's the curse from earlier. So those are the 4 cards that he's staring at. Again, Deathrite Shaman, Demonic Taskmaster, Homicidal Seclusion, and that Curse of Deathhold, which he's had since the beginning of the game.
Right.
And we talked about how good Curse of Deathhold was against Brad's previous iterations of this deck. Again, if you remember that match at Grand Prix Miami of Ray Duke playing against Brad Nelson, how good Curse of Deathhold was in that matchup, you see that Brad's deck has evolved, it's changed, and Curse is just significantly worse against his deck now.
So Michael's going to go with the Taskmaster plan, but he's also playing a Deathrite Shaman, which is interesting because of the Homicidal Seclusion being deactivated due to the fact that he's got 2 creatures. Now he can sack the Deathrite Shaman to deal with the Desecration Demon. Maybe that's his plan to give this guy lifelink, but that's how he decides to go with it. Brad draws a card at end of turn with the Underworld Connections, and as Michael passes back, Brad at 14 life now. Ton of land, ton of dudes, and a Planeswalker.
And there's one important land in his hand, a one of in his deck, Gavney Township, which, you know, you could argue that Brad is kind of flooding out a little bit here, but now this is actually going to give him something to do with all that extra mana that he's going to have moving forward. I don't think we're going to see a ton more turns in this game, as the Gavney Township can certainly put things away in a pretty quick fashion, but now he's actually got things to do with all the extra mana he's had.
And I think that Gavney Township would have made that Curse of Death's Hold look a little silly had Michael decided to go with that plan just to maybe shrink some of the guys, but yeah. That wasn't a very good plan anyway, considering his Desecration Demon was just going to kill him.
You know, it really has to set off, you know, some signals in your head if you're Rooks. That Appetite for Brains that we saw in turn number 3, you know, Brad analyzing the hand and choosing again not to take Curse of Deathhold. You know, you have to be of the mindset of, okay, like this card was insane against this deck in, you know, months prior, and he's opting not to take this. So okay, this probably isn't very good. If he's choosing not to take this card, as you can see, it's just not that good. He's going to actually sacrifice Desecration Demon to Garrick.
Yeah, this is interesting. Brad kind of seeing how Michael's trying to plan on dealing with the Desecration Demon. And he's going to go ahead and sacrifice the Demon to the Garrick to tutor up a second copy of Desecration Demon. Interesting. What do you think the logic is there?
Color me surprised.
I'm surprised too. I thought he was going for Obsidat to kind of get the guaranteed 2 and kind of grind the last few life total.
I mean, so my thought process is that he doesn't want to go to the attack step with Desecration Demon in play because he doesn't want Rooks to be able to sacrifice a creature to turn on Homicidal Seclusion. That part of it makes sense to me. Also, he wants to, you know, probably turn on Morbid or what have you, but he could have done that if Desecration Demon was around. So that's not really a huge concern. But now what he's doing is he's turning all of this guys sideways. Seclusion's not going to be online, and now he can represent a Gavney Township pump. So I actually kind of like this because now Desecration Demon isn't in the way, Homicidal Seclusion isn't going to be online, and Rooks' blocks, none of them are good. Because Seclusion isn't online and Rooks can't gain any life now. So it's kind of it's a weird, like, kind of backwards play of sacrifice my 7/7 Desecration Demon to get one to play post-combat.
But it totally makes sense when you think, you know, not wanting to turn on that Seclusion. And not allow Michael to gain more life to get out of this game. So Brad, right now, combat, 2 Wolves and a Voice of Resurgence coming in versus Michael Rooks' Demonic Taskmaster and Deathrite Shaman, which, of course, if the Taskmaster lives through this combat, he's going to have to lose the Deathrite Shaman anyway, so no reason to not chump block with the the Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, and he's forced here to block both guys because Gavin, if he lets any guy through, he's going to take 6 damage again because we know that Rooks doesn't have a removal spell in his hand. So he's forced to do all the blocking, loses Taskmaster as he draws another one for his turn. It's going to put him down to 2 after the dust settles.
Right, and then a Desecration Demon as the follow-up.
Yep.
Michael Rooks cannot clear the board, cannot deal with the onslaught presented by Brad Nelson. So Brad takes the game and match, 2-1 versus Michael Rooks here in the first round of